Real quick before we get into today's video, I want to announce an awesome giveaway of this amazing junk ship toy replica of Rick and Morty's ship. This was only available at the Rick and Morty events. It was not in stores. All you guys have to do to enter is like the video, be subscribed, hit the bell button, and leave a comment down below to be entered to win this awesome prize. What is going on, guys, and welcome back to another video with your host, as always, K-Mac time, and season 4 of Rick and Morty is finally upon us, and it's blessing us with all of its greatness, and I am super excited. And as usual, the episodes are loaded with references to science fiction, movies, and all other types of oddities in pop culture. And today, of course, I want to take a closer look at episode 1, Edge of Morty, Rick Die, Rick Pete, and see if we can't find some hidden Easter eggs or clues of what's coming later this season. Now, first off, we all know that the titles of the episodes are puns, and this one is no exception. This one is a play off of the movie called Edge of Tomorrow, Live, Die, Repeat, which was a Tom Cruise film from 2014, and I absolutely love these puns, and you can look up the episodes for coming up later in the season. They're all, again, puns and plays on words, and they're hilarious, and I love that they do this. One of the most obscure references in the entire episode is when Rick gets back to his own garage in our own universe, and he asks if his boglin is still there, and he pulls out this big squared thing looking like an animal or something in a box, a monster of some sort. You may be thinking, what the heck is that? Well, that's actually a really old school toy that came out in the late 1980s, early 1990s. It was actually a popular toy series back in the day for whatever reason, and they're like these monsters, and they came in this weird box. They're kind of like a puppet thing. Anyway, they're just a kind of a cool reference. Probably a toy that no one's thought about in over a decade, but that's kind of funny that Rick has one. I thought that was pretty funny. Next up is all the potential death scenes we see throughout this episode. It's a big major plot point of this episode is when they touch this crystal, they can see these potential deaths in their own future. They die all these different ways depending on how they act in the present, which is a really cool concept, and it leads itself to a lot of potentially different outcomes, and we get to see a lot of them, and a lot of them are hilarious. So first off, the one I think that has the biggest meaning and potentially biggest impact on the series going forward is when we see Rick being torn in half by Squanchy. This, of course, being a funny callback to the season 2 episode where they go to the wedding, but it also means that Squanchy is alive in this universe because otherwise he couldn't be in the future killing Rick. The logic doesn't make sense, so he has to be alive. He had to have survived that wedding. He had to have gotten out of jail or prison or wasn't captured at all, and would love to see more Squanchy in a future episode. Also, another throwback we see here is Pickle Rick from last season. Oh, one of the best episodes from last season. We see him being eaten by a dog, which I thought was fucking hilarious. We also get to see tons of other ones. Like I said, there are just so many of these. We get to see the creature from the opening credits eat Rick. One of them is Rick just simply drunk driving, which is hilarious. One of them is Rick being eaten while scuba diving, which kind of could be the episode Rick Lanch's Adventures. We never got to see what they did on that adventure. That could be something they're going back there. You also see him being burned alive, and if you look closely, you can even see on where he appears to be impaled on sharp rocks, just like what happens to him later in this episode, which is a pretty funny and awesome little detail that they threw in there. Again, there are loads of these things, and they're different throughout the rest of the episode. There's hundreds of these things. These are just the ones that I thought were funny or ones I picked up on. There are more, and you can freeze frame them and look them all down, and they are all hilarious. Also, if you take a look at Morty's death scenes, again, they're just really well done. They're really varied, and some of them are like gruesome. Some of them are just really stupid. Some of them are over the top. Some of them give us clues for things later on, but they're hilarious. We actually get to see his Morty's head gets stuck in an elevator. We get to see one where nuclear waste is splashed on them by a car. We get to see Morty sucked out of a space toilet, and he dies in outer space. That's just always hilarious. I was wondering even one where Morty just simply chokes on a meatball while eating spaghetti. It's super hilarious. To see one where he smokes and gets lung cancer. There's one where he gets hit by a bus because he's not paying attention. He's texting while walking through the streets. One that I thought was particularly interesting here was you get to see him disarming a neutrino bomb, which is a callback to the season 3 episode Vindicators, where we see Morty saying he's disarmed these bombs too many times because Rick gets drunk and makes these things and he has to disarm them. Well, in this reality, or in that potential reality, it seems like he doesn't disarm it in time and it blows up. So that's pretty funny. And probably the one that I thought was the weirdest or just the oddest but the funniest one is when we see Morty have a heart attack after he's like kind of like looking at these girls in the kitchen, and then they're like it becomes clear that they're lesbians and they kind of like go off with each other to kiss, and he has a heart attack from that. I thought that was absolutely hilarious. Just some kind of randomness thrown in there. Like I said, there are more of these throughout this episode. There's probably a dozen or so more that I either didn't touch on or didn't think I really knew what was going on in them. But if you guys have any information on that, you want to share what your favorite death scene of Rick or Morty is, please leave a comment down below. But moving right along here, later we get to see a scene what looks like Times Square in New York, where they're watching the news on the giant screen on the building, and there are tons of Easter eggs hidden in the building and in the signs. The obvious one being the giant Trover Saves the Universe sign, which obviously is a video game that the creator of the show, Justin Roiland, recently put out. So if you didn't really know about Trover, it is a character that Justin Roiland made for his video games, and it's actually a really funny video game if you can play it. Check that one out. But that one was pretty obvious, but if you look even closer in the background, you can make out these signs back here that say corporate America owns you, which is a pretty funny little joke they tossed in about how corporate brands and like things like Coca-Cola or things like that have these giant advertisements. They kind of just own you and own Americans as a whole. So I thought that was pretty funny. I also love the ticker at the bottom of the newscast, in case you guys missed that. It also pokes fun at how people pronounce LaCroix or LaCroix or however you want to pronounce it. It also says either way you pronounce it makes you stupid, because that's just how the thing goes. I hate that drink anyway. It's like a soft drink. It kind of tastes like a hint of blueberry thrown in with water. It's just, I don't know. Anyway, I won't get into the argument. Anyway, it later goes on to say that the judge in Morty's trial killed herself. And we did see, last time we saw her in the courtroom, said she was going to see her deceased husband after Morty brought back his final words, and she wanted to wanted to see him. So apparently she killed herself trying to be with her late husband. So that's actually really dark and pretty funny on top of that. And also later on, there are a ton of little funny things we only see on screen for a second or two that can kind of make them hard to pick up, or maybe you just didn't catch it the first time or the first thing through. We see a picture with Nazi Rick and the Nazi president. It says, on that, it's in the handwriting, it says, "Thanks for sterilizing China," which I thought was downright hilarious. Just little details like that make the show over the top and really well done. Later in Morty's classroom on the chalkboard is filled with missable details. Of course, it's littered with penises and things that are drawn like dicks and all that kind of stuff that they put in all of these episodes, which are all really funny. It also has like these ass jokes. It says one ass plus one ass equals two asses. I'm not sure why that's there, but that's pretty funny. But the important thing here you could possibly miss is the equation on the board. Now, you may be thinking this is a random equation that they just put out of a book, or maybe it's a bunch of gibberish and it means nothing, because a lot of times the math in this show is just kind of stupid. And then, like I said, one ass plus two asses equals three asses. Like, that's the kind of stuff they're talking about. But this is actually a real equation on the board. And when I looked up what it is, it's actually called what is called the nth roots of unity. And it's a very confusing, very complicated equation that, honestly, I know nothing about. I don't know what it's for, what it's used for, or how to do it. I don't know anything about it. But I do get that they use this one because the name Unity is the key here. Of course, Unity being a character from previous episodes, Rick's previous girlfriend, and in Hive Mind Unity. So could she be coming back? Is she somehow maybe using her control to control Earthlings from afar? Is maybe this planet, or is this Earth assimilated, but like not everyone knows it, or maybe it's just not apparent to them? This could be a little bit of a clue here. Anyway, I would love to see more of Unity and Rick together, because that episode was great. So fingers crossed that this is something that is hinting at that. If it's not, it's just kind of a thing in the background. They kind of chose that for maybe a little bit of an Easter egg. Also on the chalkboard in the top corner, we can see that Morty actually has detention, which I thought was pretty funny. And there's a sign behind Morty in the classroom, which appears to be a no flossing sign. The dance move, the floss. Apparently the writers and the animators do not like that, and I thought that was absolutely hysterical. Later in the episode, however, when Rick wakes up in a new body for the first time in an alternate dimension, he says that he thought he axed this protocol in his previous season.
What the hell? I axed this protocol.
Which, if you think about it, he did in his universe. Back in the Tiny Rick episode, we actually get to see him destroying all of his cloning equipment with an axe. So I thought that was a pretty cool nod back to that. Also, later on, when we see hologram Rick is yelling at our Rick, he mentions Isaac Asimov.
That is some AI racist accusatory Isaac Asimov bull right there. Then what happened?
Which, shortly after the episode aired, saw a massive spike in searches for that name on Google. Anyway, it turns out that Asimov is actually a very popular science fiction writer who wrote hundreds of short stories and novels about robots and artificial intelligence, which fits this scene perfectly, and I love that they went there. It's just kind of one of those references. You heard it, you may have missed it, you didn't know who that is, you don't get the joke, and that's kind of that high-level humor, and I love looking things like this up. It really adds an extra layer of nuance to this episode. Of course, later on, we also see the hugely referenced Akira. And they say this is the Akira episode. We also have Morty turning into a giant blob like Akira. And for those who are wondering, Akira is a Japanese anime from 1998, which is actually set in a dystopian 2019. So the timing of this is absolutely hilarious, and it may be why they chose to go that route. Anyway, it's based around a character who has telekinesis powers and eventually loses control of them and turns into a giant blob-like monster, just like we see happen to Morty with this kind of like morphic stuff around him, and it's got like this, it's really dark and weird animation style. It's apparently one of the best animes of all time, as voted on by a bunch of people. I've never seen it, but maybe I'll watch it after this. Anyway, like I said, Morty turns into a giant blob monster just like that. That's what it's based off of, and if you want to learn more about it, I guess you can check it out as well. But anyway, those are just the ones I found, guys. Overall, this was an amazing episode to kick off Season 4, and I know, like I said, I just scratched the surface of this episode. There are probably tons of things that I missed, especially in those death scenes. They're so fast and so hard to see sometimes. So by all means, guys, if you guys caught something that I missed or I didn't mention, please leave a comment down below, share it with me, and share it with everyone else in the comments. Let me know your guys' theories. Let me know you guys' thoughts on this episode. Do you guys like where this is going? Are you guys excited for more Rick and Morty? So anyway, guys, that's all I have for today. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you guys do me a favor, smash that like button and subscribe for more videos like this. I'm going to be breaking down every episode this season, as well as check out my previous episodes I broke down for last season, Season 3. And like I said, the giveaway is going on, so if you guys want some awesome Rick and Morty items, all you guys have to do is be subscribed, hit that bell button, and leave a comment down below, and you guys will be entered to win some awesome Rick and Morty merch. But until next time, guys, remember that it's always K-Mac time somewhere. Until then, guys, take it easy, and peace out.